in movies showing a dystopian future. People fighting for a basic need like water. We're witnessing early warning signs in India's sixth largest city, Chennai. Tokens are being given out to collect water from tankers. In some localities, it's a lottery system to see who actually gets some water. Hotels are turning away customers. Some employees are being asked to work from home.
Tamil Nadu's water crisis has reached its peak. Capital Chennai is facing the severe brunt. Deficient monsoon coupled with poor water management has resulted in acute shortage of water, hitting the common man hard and triggering a larger debate on the impending dangers. The issue, however, has been in the making for a long time now. Chennai is facing its most severe drought conditions with 62% lesser rains this year. While the city needs 840 millions of liters per day, the current supply is a meager 525 mld water. The massive water crunch is now impacting businesses. Some hotels and restaurants have shut down temporarily, many others urging customers to conserve water. Home to top Indian and multinational firms and over 4 lakh IT employees, Chennai is finally witnessing adverse and timely action. But the struggles are not of Chennaites alone. A report by Niti Aayog released last year says that 21 cities, yes, 21 cities, including the likes of Delhi, Bengaluru and Hyderabad, will run out of groundwater by 2020, affecting a whopping 100 million people. It further says that 40% of India's population will run out of drinking water by 2030. Alarming statistics, isn't it? Water activists say that things will get a lot worse if immediate steps are not taken to address the issue. But nothing will resolve the problem unless we chose to judicially use this precious resource.
So can it be left to the people once again to figure out this crisis? Meanwhile, the Tamil Nadu Chief Minister says the media is hyping the issue despite being pulled up by the Madras High Court. So what has led to this situation? To speak on this, I am joined now by Avinash Mishra, who is advisor with the Niti Aayog, S. Vishwanath, a water conservation expert and founder of Biomes Solutions, and Dr. Shekhar Raghavan, director at the Rain Center. Welcome to all of you. Dr. Raghavan, let me begin by asking you why we have come to such an acute situation in Chennai.
Yes. All droughts and all floods are man-made. So, we have created all this drought. There is absolutely no long-term planning by the government, and the residents have also not given much importance to harvesting the rain that falls above them. So, though we made rainwater harvesting mandatory in 2003, people have not taken it seriously till date. So I have been running around trying to sensitize them about the importance of rainwater harvesting. See, rain is the predominant source of all fresh water on earth. And unless you capture the rain that falls in a few days in a year, we will run out of water. And that is precisely what is happening in Chennai. So people should definitely wake up. There is a wake-up call. And this has to be done not only by the residents, but also by the state. They have their own role to play. The citizens also have their own role to play. So unless both play their useful role, this will go from bad to worse.
Mr. Raghavan, that still doesn't answer my question about why it has become such a huge crisis this time round. From what we understand, 4 reservoirs have run dry, groundwater levels are extremely low, and you're right, rainwater harvesting should have been done. It's not been done, but the city manages each time. What has precipitated the situation this time round?
See, the most important thing is failure of northeast monsoon in 2018. So we got only 50% of what we should have got, and even the previous year, like 2016 and 17 were also not good. Though in 16 we got Varda cyclone, the rainfall was not sufficient. So this cumulative effect has led to all this crisis. In addition, our apathy towards water, our apathy towards rain has probably led to all this.
Let me bring in here Mr. Vishwanath for your inputs. We are seeing a situation where there is no clear idea of how to deal with this crisis. I've read reports where there were stabbings while people in a line were fighting about who gets to pick water first. Do you think the situation could have been avoided, or was the government caught sleeping at the wheel?
Absolutely not. This government, but all governments are sleeping at the wheel when it comes to institutions of governance of water in our cities. The Chennai Metro Water Supply and Sewerage Board, which is responsible for water supply and sewerage in the city of Chennai, should be strengthened. And we should look at making sure that this CMWSSB has long-term and short-term plans to manage water effectively. If you have institutions which do not even meter water, we do not know how much water is being put into the pipeline, how much is leaking. We don't have a sense of what groundwater quality is available and quantity is available. We do not know how much water can be held in our lakes and wetlands. And unless we get our institutional architecture right and get integrated urban water management into place, we will every year repeat the same mistake.
No, and absolutely, it's not going to happen just in Chennai. We've seen, the signs of rumbling all across, and this is such an important issue. Let me bring in Mr. Mishra here, of course, from the Niti Aayog, on what the governments can do. Now, we know that this particular government has put in place a Jal Shakti ministry. One's not very clear what this ministry will do, but supplying piped water to every household is on its mission as well. Here you're in a situation where we're already looking at an acute water shortage. Shouldn't this become the top priority, Mr. Mishra?
No, actually the drinking water is certainly a top priority. It is the priority as a part of the national water policy also. But look, the first thing which we all need to be sensitized, that we are not managing the water properly. There should be a water budget, water accounting. What rightly has been said already in this program, that we should first be able to measure what is the quantum of water is available in our lakes, and what are the water bodies which we have created, or traditional water bodies, those have been rejuvenated. Because this is the high time, while the population has grown in Chennai to an unsustainable level, and we cannot expect to provide the water to the rate of 135 to 150 liters per capita per day. There should be rationalization, there should be another protocol of providing the water while there is a summer and while there is a pre-monsoon failure. So all these conditions should be kept in mind. And the other thing, if we see that we have not yet put in place the reuse and recycle of the wastewater. Wastewater which gets generated, that finally goes into the groundwater, or it finally met to the water bodies and contaminate the water there itself. So all these things are required. The water need to be metered, there should be rationalized distribution, there should be a proper leak detection mechanism. For instance, in Singapore, the water distribution losses are in between 5 to 8%, but in our cities it is ranging from 30 to 45 and in certain places it is up to 50%. So this particular phenomena should really be looked into seriously. I think this is all required. And as far as the Jal Shakti ministries,
absolutely, you're right that all of this needs to be done. And you know what the problem with us is, that whenever we stare at such a crisis, there is a whole list of things to be done. And we have no shortage of solutions in this country. As someone who works in policy, Mr. Mishra, you know that very well. We faced these before, we are going to face it again, and we're in the middle of a crisis right now. Can you pinpoint for me what could have been done to avoid this? As Mr. Raghavan said, poor monsoons last year have contributed to what we're seeing right now. Could this not have been seen in advance?
No.
Could there not have been preparation?
No, Actually, there is a preparation which needs to be done by the state government. Since water is a state subject, they should have very well taken into consideration what is the water budget, what is the water remaining as a balance. So the services sector, so the industrial sector, and all other sectors should not suffer the way it is suffering now in the Chennai. Now you see, we are in the mid and in the just in a crisis, just mid of the crisis. This is really a panic situation, and now at this point of time, we can only think of the too much rationalization of water to provide the bare minimum drinking water. I think Chennai has got the desalination plants already, and the state governments or the authorities over there can think of further to put up any such plant further and to really augment the water resources. You see, there are the solution, but we need to also consider that there is a limit, there is a carrying capacity of a city that should also be decided. This is very much required.
Yeah, we're talking about Chennai today, but the fact is that this is a problem that we are going to see in more cities. We've already seen in some. We've seen it in some parts in Bengaluru. We see it in some parts in Maharashtra, and that really is the problem. Yes, Mr. Mishra, you wanted to make a point on that.
Yeah, I'll tell you, whatever the wastewater is generated in our country, 33% of that only gets treated, and very further quite a low percentage of this is again put to reuse. So that's how we are managing the water, proper water management. The losses in our municipal supplies of the water in all across the country is 30 to 40%. We say it's a non-revenue water or whatever, but this is the type of the losses. The skewed distribution of the water is there. In many places, you will see the water which is provided in certain part of the cities much more higher than the 150 liter per capita per day, and in certain portion of the city it is even less than 30 liter per capita per day. So this is skewed distribution of the water.
No, I'm glad you brought up
budgeting and water accounting is completely absent.
I'm glad you brought up skewed distribution of water, and let me come to Mr. Vishwanath as well on this point, because what happens with skewed distribution of water is that those who are the most vulnerable, the poorest, the weakest, they get the most affected. In Chennai, for example, private water tankers have upped their prices. The tankers from Metro Water take 25 days to come. From private water tankers, it's 2 weeks, and they're charging up to 5,000 rupees per tanker. So it's the poorest of the poor that get affected, and this is where governments need to step in to ensure equitable distribution, isn't it?
Look, as has been pointed out rightly by you and by others, we need an urban drinking water and sanitation policy at state level, which sets out the goal as to what a city wants to do with its water supply. Universal connections should be the sine qua non. It should be the basic minimum. Every household in the city should get a connection to the city pipeline network. Is that promised by any city in India? Ideally, there should be 24/7 water in the pipes flowing, good clean water to all. Universal access, water as a human right. Is that promised by any city in India? None. We should make sure that all sewerage is collected, all the wastewater that's generated from households is collected and treated, as has been rightly pointed out. Is that promised by any city in India? None. We have 20th century institutions governing our water supply and sanitation, and we have 21st century problems. Our problems are ecological and social. They're no longer technical. And do we have the right institutions? Do we have hydrologists? Do we have hydrogeologists? Do we have people who can understand river basins and manage water in our water institutions? The answer is no. If we do not set right the institutional architecture, the symptoms will keep popping up now and then. And we can't keep on putting Band-Aid on chickenpox. That's what we've been doing throughout for the last 30, 40 years. We've got to set systemic solutions in place which are structural and which should promise universal access to water and sanitation.
Even currently, what is the government's plan? The government's plan is to cross its fingers and hope the rains arrive in ample amount so that this problem gets tided over at least till the next year or at the next time it crops up. Dr. Raghavan, do you think that there is complete lack of plan and direction to what governments should do? And today is the Tamil Nadu government, but like the others have pointed out rightly, it's not like anyone really has a plan.
Of course, the government does not have a long term plan, as I said earlier, but even, for example, there are three things that the government should do immediately. One is they should stop constructing stormwater drains which remove all the urban runoff and dumps it into the sea. See, precious rainwater is dumped into the sea, and then you talk of desalination, trying to bring back seawater into fresh water and so on. So, government is always keen on mega projects. While dumping a lot of water, they spend a lot of money. While bringing back seawater as fresh water, they spend a lot of money. So, that is one thing they should immediately stop and try to recharge the aquifer wherever it's possible. Another thing is, Chennai still has a few water bodies close to its neighborhood. So, these water bodies are now being completely abused. There is a lot of encroachments, a lot of solid waste is dumped, a lot of liquid waste is dumped. So, they should be immediately revived, recovered and brought back as fresh water sources. A lot of rainwater can be collected in them. In addition, the last one point that I would like to make is that both Tiruvallur and Kanchipuram districts, which are the neighbouring districts of Chennai, there are close to 3,000 traditional water bodies. They are all called Aries in Tamil and they are called Kere in Karnataka. So, these water bodies have lost its agricultural relevance now, because all the paddy fields are now being converted into plots. So, these 3,000 water bodies are there for you to be revived, to be restored to its past glory, and then you can collect lot of rainwater in them. And mind you, these water bodies are all connected, interconnected. If one gets filled up, it flows and fills up the neighbouring villages area and so on. So, these 3,000 water bodies, if only they are revived, Chennai's water problem can be completely solved if they are revived.
So, we have a wealth of information, but what are we doing about it? Avinash Mishra, I was looking up research for this show as well, and of course, we all know what happened in Cape Town last year. They were faced with a situation where they would run out of water. They named it the 0 day, when they would completely run out of water, and the first thing they did was divert water that went to agriculture back to urban centers. Now, even thinking about something like that in India would be really, really difficult, because you would need political will to do it. Is that something which needs to be put on priority basis and look at how water is used in agricultural purposes? There are some crops which are water guzzling crops, and those need to be looked at as well.
Yes, certainly. And you see, under the Pradhan Mantri Krishi Sinchai Yojana, we are insisting on the micro irrigation, drip irrigation, also the crop diversification. Means it seems quite relevant to grow the sugarcane in Maharashtra, and for that matter rice in Punjab, where there is a absolute water crisis. So, actually these are the things, and that is what actually in this program sometime back the gentleman has said that this drought is the man-made thing. Because of this situation, it becomes a man-made thing. There is a ample water. If the water bodies all around the Chennai, if they have been encroached and they have been dumped with the solid waste, then in that case there are no recharging points. If all over the city have been paved, there is no water recharging. So, all these things should be looked into. After all, these are all scientific intervention which we require to catch the rainwater, and finally the rainwater should infiltrate below the aquifer, and then the groundwater should be made available. So, all these things should be should be in place. That is very much required, and there are the experiences which is available in Niti Aayog that in all across the country we have conducted many experiments where the water bodies have been desilted and the groundwater has risen to the level of 4 to 5 meter. That is what has happened some time back in the Rajasthan also under the Mukhyamantri Jal Samvardhan Yojana, and for that matter in Maharashtra under Jal Yukt Shivir Abhiyan. So all these things are required, and it should
but
be a
Mr.
people's
Mishra,
movement.
in
Actually,
Maharashtra,
the
sir, let
water
me
is
just
a
come in,
natural
please.
resource.
Yes, let me just come in, because you talked about the Jal Yukt Shivir Abhiyan, and that was something that I looked at fairly carefully, and that did not work out. It started off as an ambitious project, but it did not work out eventually, and it did not lead to what the Maharashtra government had hoped for. So implementation is also key, wouldn't you agree? Because like I said, there are loads of plans, but someone has to implement them.
No, actually what I said, there should be a people's movement. That's true. Under the Jal Yukt Shivir, Maharashtra government was driving and something was happening. But you see, whenever we implement some good plan, there are some shortcomings that should be addressed. But we cannot all through leave it aside, saying that no, water what is required to be rejuvenated, water what is required to be renovated, that's all we have to do. It's our traditional water bodies, and also, as I am again repeating, there should be a carrying capacity of any city. We cannot really we cannot allow city to grow beyond the limit of the natural resources being made available to that city.
So no,
this
let
is
me
also one
see how
important
practical
issue.
these solutions are. Mr. Vishwanath, let's come in here, because now, like Mr. Mishra is saying, this should be a people's movement, and what we're going to see next possibly can be guessed. You will see a lot of campaigns and perhaps money spent on campaigns on how people should conserve water, and yes, people should conserve water. But is that going to be enough to leave it to people to say shut your taps off, don't use shower, use a bucket, etc.? Is that really going to be enough, considering the stage where we've already reached?
Well, look, people's participation has been a long abuse for there should be participation, there should be community movements which will support the water supply. But ultimate responsibility and accountability should be with the government institutions. You mentioned Cape Town. In Cape Town, what they realized was that you have to think of the city within a river basin. You need river basin institutions which say what happens to the water at that scale. How much water can agriculture take? How much can urban areas take? And how should it be divided up? There's a myth going around that urban areas consume too much of rural water. In actuality, if you take a city like Bangalore, for example, it only takes about 11% of Karnataka's Kaveri water allocation. And after consuming that 11% of water, it releases 80% of it back as wastewater. Ideally, it should be treated wastewater, which goes back to the basin. Net, it's only consuming 2 to 3% of Karnataka's Kaveri water allocation, with about 50% of the population of Karnataka in the Kaveri basin. So cities should be situated in the river basin. River basin institutions and authorities should be created, and these should be empowered to be able to make decisions and then also be held accountable, so that the buck should stop somewhere, and it should be with the government institution. That's not happening. If you just keep on leading people's movement, then Jal Yukt Shivir movements will dig farm ponds, but who will take care of the farm ponds in the long run? And without taking care and without operation and maintenance, these systems will die a natural death. Government
Exactly.
institutional responsibility is the bottom line.
Exactly. Governments will have to step in now. Mr. Raghavan, please come in on this. Hasn't the time passed for more campaigns? And, definitely those need to be done. Maybe you have to come to a situation where people who are wasting water will have to bear the brunt of it. Maybe you will have to come to a situation where you will have to ration out water. We are facing a very bleak situation, and the first step would be acceptance on where we are.
Yeah, but there's absolutely no water here, so water conservation comes in automatically. One need not bring it in at all. But let me tell you, this water management should no longer be neither a bureaucratic exercise nor an academic exercise. It should be much more than that. We should start loving water and rain the way we love our children.
Yeah, everyone, Mr. Raghavan, you'll have to come in with more details on that. Everyone loves water. You need water to live. There isn't any. There are now private, companies which are making money out of people's destitution of water, and there are governments which are not clear on what to do. Now, to leave it to people to say love water like you love your children, I mean, I don't know, how are people really going to do that, Dr. Raghavan?
No, but we have provided enough lip service to water, isn't it? For the past 30 years, 40 years. Yeah, we should go beyond this. We should start loving water from our bottom of our heart. I'm just saying that. See, water conservation, now when I go and talk about water conservation, they'll probably hit me now. They say there is no water here, and what are you talking about water conservation? So I keep hitting upon the point that rainwater will have to be harvested. Rainwater will have to be conserved.
It's the government's
job. This is the
job.
message that we keep doing all the time.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
We have the rain center in Chennai.
It's the government's job. When you run out of water and then you tell people, please conserve what you have, well, they're not going to be very happy to hear that. If you think that this is alarmist, then listen to this. According to an Asian Development Bank forecast, India may end up with 50% water deficiency by the year 2030. It's not that far away. An analysis of water levels in 91 reservoirs across India as of June 15 show that in 85 of them, water levels are below 40%. You have a water crisis in Maharashtra. You saw a water crisis in Himachal. You have a water crisis possibly in Bengaluru. It's coming. It's here. The crisis is here. We need to wake up and figure out a way to make this top priority. I want to thank all of you for joining us on the show and to assure you that we at the India Development Debate are going to be following this story consistently to see and make sure that there is pressure on governments to make this a top priority. No development will matter if you don't have the water. Thank you for watching.